One of my exes accused me of raping her, and it opened an NCIS investigation for almost 3 months. Back when I was in the military, I had this major identity crisis due to a career change, and I ended up marrying this woman at 19, divorced at 19, that already had a baby. And I was like, well, if I can't do this job, I'll just be a dad, right? I found out pretty quickly that this person was not a healthy person to stay in a relationship with, probably within 4 or 5 months, and I started trying to figure out how I'm going to get my way out of it. Part of the things that I would have to deal with in that relationship were like threats of harm of me, my career, or her own child over concerns I would raise about treatment or like towards me or just whatever. One of the pinnacle moments, we had an intimate night, and during the process of intimacy, she had a psychotic break, and she reverted back to the age of like a 6-year-old in the middle of intimacy. And that kind of stopped me dead in my tracks and it freaked me out pretty heavily. So I stopped what I was doing and I sat next to her and I picked up her favorite brush and I brushed her hair for probably an hour while she colored pictures and talked to me like a 6-year-old. And so I'm holding her, I'm brushing her hair, and I'm talking to her about the picture she's coloring and, what is she coloring and what color is she using and, the things you do with a 6-year-old. But mind you, this woman was in her 20s. And that really freaked me out. The following morning, I woke up and she told me that the night before that I had raped her. And that wasn't my perception of what happened, but okay. And so sort of like with this sinister look on her face, she was recording me, and I could tell she was recording me. And she told me that if I didn't tell everyone that I had raped her, that she would ruin my career, that she would take it to the chain of command and tell them and expose me there and everyone know that I was a rapist, right? So she told me to sit down and tell my mother and the women in my family that I had done this. And so she's sitting next to me, phone in hand, telling me, like, do these things, right? So I sent my mother a text message. Now, my mother, in her infinite wisdom and discernment, caught on pretty quickly that something was wrong. So she called a couple of other women in my family, and from what I understand, they prayed for like 12 hours. Like, they didn't get off their knees praying. And at one point in time, I went to the bathroom to try and text my mom and be like, hey, I need help. Like, I'm in danger. I don't know what's going on. I went to the bathroom, and she walked in. Like, I went in there 2 seconds. She opened the door behind me, walked in. I was like, what are you doing? And so we ended up going to the kitchen, and I sat down in the living room floors, like the tile of the living room floor. She was sitting across the room from me on like this bench thing at a kitchen table, right? Her son was still asleep. Her parents weren't home. And she picked up a kitchen knife. And she just sat down, and she's just twirling the kitchen knife, and I'm trying to record it, and she walks up, she goes, oh, no, we're not going to record. And like she reached down in my hand and took my phone and deleted the recording, right? And she's sitting there telling me all of the ways she's going to ruin my life, almost with like this sinister, giddy grin on her face. She's so excited. She cannot wait to tell everyone how horrible I am and that she's going to ruin my life, right? 5 or 10 minutes into sitting in the kitchen, like I'm sitting on the tile floor, listening to her do these things, trying to figure out what to do, the front door jiggles, like the keys to the front door jiggle. And she immediately gets up, walks over, greets her parents as if nothing happened, comes over, gives me a kiss, and is like, I love you, and flipped right back, right? I go outside to leave, to go back to base, which was probably 4 or 5 hours away, or 3 or 4 or 5 hours away, somewhere in that distance. It's not just not in that state, it's on the other side of the next state, right? And she walks outside with me and picks up my truck keys and just runs it down the side of my truck from headlight to tail light, just like a little bit of a in her step, just keys the side of the truck. I'm like, I'm in trouble. I got to go. So I go back to base. I immediately go tell my chain of command what happened and that I'm concerned. And so I fill out a report like, hey, I'm afraid. I want out of this. Like, I don't know what's going on, right? And maybe a month goes by. I'd been back to her house once or twice over that month. I'd try to come home on a weekend if I didn't have duty on the weekends, right? And one day, it's like late in the evening, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, the sun's starting to go down, something like that, east coast of Florida. And I get a knock at my window. I'm sitting in the car on base. I get a knock at the window, and I look up, and it's her. And I'm like, oh, man, okay, what are you doing here, right? And I get out of the car, and she was just there. And I was like, no, you can't be here. You need to go. You know, well, like, I'll put you on base. I'll put you on a hotel on base for the night, but, like, you can't stay here, right? And so she has her own car. I have mine. I'm trying to drive her to the base hotel, and like, she's behind me. I end up running a red light on base, get pulled over, get a ticket, or whatever the base version of like a citation is, right? So then I end up having to go do a driving course later because I got a ticket on base for running a red light. And I did a California stop, so like a slow and go, you know? And once I got out of the citation, for whatever reason, she pulled over her car, and I stop. She gets out and takes off running through this big open field in the middle of the night. I mean, the sun's well down at this point in time. It's 8 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock. The sun's gone, right? And she's running through this field, and she just gets to the middle of the field, and she just sits down and collapses. And it's like, I'm not moving until, I don't remember what exactly she said, like, you tell me you love me, or you tell me that you want me, or something like that. I'm not moving until you, whatever. And I'm like, okay. Like, I'm trying to figure out how to navigate this, right? An hour goes by, ended up getting her back to her room on base, like to the hotel room. And I'm like, I have to go back. I have a really early training flight in the morning, and I need to finish doing my laundry. I'm going to go now. And she was like, wait, just sleep with me one more time. If you're really going to divorce me, just sleep with me one more time. And I was like, no, I don't want to sleep with you. Like, I need to go. Like, I can't, I have to go, right? And she begged and begged and begged and begged. And then finally she said, if you don't sleep with me, I'm going to take these bottles of pills. Like, she had psych medication and this bottle of vodka that she had, and I'm going to drink it, and I'm going to tell everyone that you made me do it. And they're going to believe me because I'm a woman. So I was like, okay. So I slept with her. It took 5 minutes, And then I left and I went back to my room. Okay. The following morning I wake up, she's standing outside of my barracks, and she looked just as good as she always did. She had this affinity for making herself look incredible, like perfect hair, perfect makeup, brightly colored dresses, bows in her hair, like always very well put together. Right. And I was like, you have to go. Like, you can't be here. Whatever. And she opens the back of her car, and she had like a whole bunch of stuff from the NEX. It was like the on base, it's like the Walmart on base, right? And I was like, where did you buy all of that stuff? And she's like, oh, I just took it out of the joint account. And so I go open the joint account, and like hundreds of dollars in the joint savings account has just been wiped out. So like the joint savings account is just down to zero. And like, that was the account that I put money in to help her take care of. We're married, so like our son, but she was worth millions of dollars. This woman had a lot of her own money. So why she would empty the joint savings account to do that didn't make any sense to me. This woman was worth a lot of money. At least I was under the impression she was worth a lot of money, right? And I take her back to her hotel room, and I walk into the hotel room, and the hotel room is in shambles. Like, the drawers are pulled out of the dresser. The bed's turned sideways, the sheets all over the place, the clothes she had in the drawers are all turned sideways, whatever. And, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. I take her back to the hotel room, and I'm like, you have to leave. And she's like, I want you to stay with me. If you don't, I'm going to take these bottles of pills for real this time, and I'm going to drink this vodka. And when I die, everyone's going to look at you because they're going to think that you unalived me. And I was like, well, that's insane. You can't do that. So I go outside. I call my chain of command to tell them what's going on. And they are like, okay, we'll dispatch the base first responders and security forces to the hotel. They'll be there in like 5 or 10 minutes, right? Not even joking. As soon as that call ended, her mother called me. And her mother, and like, I answer the phone, I'm like, I'm trying to be calm. And her mother starts ripping into me. And I just snapped. I was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And I snapped on her and started yelling at her and telling her daughter's insane. Like, your daughter is insane. She is ruining my life. She's threatening me. This is not okay. And like in the middle of yelling that, this '06, this colonel walks right in front of me, and I turn around and look at him as I'm on the phone, screaming my head off belligerently at this woman's mother. And I just put the phone down and give a salute, and he was like, "No, don't even worry about it." And he just kept going, and I was like, "Thank you, sir." But I walk back inside to tell her the security forces are on base to escort her off, and when I walk inside, the room is destroyed. It's in shambles. There is a styrofoam cup that had grape juice, like it was purple on the inside. The pill bottles were empty and the vodka bottles missing. Okay, so I go carefully digging through the room to try and like not make it worse than it currently is, so they can't actually try to accuse me of this. And I end up finding the bottle of vodka, and like some of it's empty. And so then I'm like, oh, shoot. So I call back the base. I'm like, hey, she took the pills, she took the vodka. They're like, okay, we'll send the ambulance. We'll take her to the on-base hospital. We'll pump her stomach, right? I'm like, all right, cool. So I go outside. I'm 19. I'm holding a half-empty bottle of Grey Goose vodka, waiting on the security forces and the ambulance and everybody to show up. And they show up, and I'm standing there like, hey, I'm underage. This isn't my alcohol. This is hers. What do you want me to do with it? They instructed me to just go pour it down the drain and then give them the bottle. So I did. When I come back from holding the empty bottle, she walks out of the hotel with the security forces and the ambulance driver, and she's wearing one of my uniform blouses over her shoulder. And she's sort of like walking a little sheepishly. Her head is down. And she walks past me, and it's like the moment she walks past me, she looks up at me out of the corner of her eye like this, and she just flinches. She looks at me and goes like that. The moment she did that, every single person standing there looked at me like I was the worst human being on planet Earth. And I'm just standing there like, I didn't do anything. Like, yeah, I yelled at your mother, but I didn't touch you. I've never threatened you. I've never harmed you. This is insane. This is wild. And she ends up on the hospital. And in the hospital, she tells them that I raped her, right? So they do a rape kit, and what do they find? Well, they find my DNA from the night before, right? And this opens a almost 90-day investigation. It drops me out of training, freezes my security clearance investigation, puts me down completely, right? That same night at like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, I get a call from my chain of command to come to the hangar bay. And I come in there. My CO is standing in there in a room in blue jeans, flip-flops, a T-shirt, with a no contact order, telling me that I don't have the authority to contact her. Like, if you do, you're gonna get in trouble, but you can't contact her anymore. I'm like, fine with me, The following week, we had an early Friday. Like, we got out at like noon on Friday. I looked at one of my best friends at the time, and I was like, hey, you want to go fly? Like, we're in Florida. I'm like, do you want to fly to where was it? Boston, go visit we had a friend that was up there. His name was Merrick. We'll go party with Merrick for the weekend. Now, mind you, you can't do that. That's too far away. We didn't have leave chits. Whatever. We did it. Anyway, the first day I was there, I got like 40 voicemails from this woman, crying, apologizing, telling me that my son misses me, want me to come back, whatever. And I'm like, no, I can't. I'm not going to touch this with a 50-foot pole, right? Anyway, 90 days goes by, NCIS ends up closing the investigation, and they acquit me of all the charges. So what she had done was basically thrown a grenade in the room and then refused to ever answer any more questions. Like, they knocked on her door, she refused to open it. She wouldn't answer phone calls or emails, like nothing. They did the investigation, did nothing. This completely derailed my career. Within a month of that, I was being kicked out of the military. And that was one of the most difficult experiences of my life. And then if you watched one of my previous videos, within a week or two of that happening is when all of the nudes got leaked, right? And again, I have no way of proving if it was her, but that was like when all the nudes got leaked, and then whatever. And that's why NCIS got the emails. But I want to tell you what I learned during that process, right? Through that experience, okay? You can go into places with the best of intentions. You can go into conversations, you can go into relationships, you can go into circumstances or even employment intending to do good. And the God's honest truth is that there are some people who, in their ignorance or selfishness or lack of goodwill, their bad faith or something, are, when they start hurting, when they start being at risk for losing something, when they start being the one that gets put on the back burner of your priority, will start to do everything in their power to attempt to destroy your image, character, reputation to the greatest degree possible. And they will even go so far as to conflate previous conversations or disagreements in a way that makes them look or sound abusive or controlling. They will conflate what can be everyday, regular marital disagreements or arguments into something that is the most extreme version of abuse. They suddenly become the victim that completely lacks any or all accountability for the humanness of not just your interactions, but the part that they played in things getting bad, right? And when I experienced that, that was my first real dose at the wickedness of a scorned woman. And it was also my first real dose at how capable a woman was could be at being manipulative through emotions, on rallying people to her side, with no one ever stopping to care for if it's true or what's happening to the man, right? And I remember that in this experience, like when it happened, that she had sent a photo of herself in the hospital to one of the members of my family and said, "Look, Trevor did this to me." Anyway, that family member took her side and went on this tirade of berating me, telling people I'd put my wife in the hospital, like everything that they could come up with to try and take the side that this woman was in fact the victim. It took 3 whole months and a full NCIS investigation before I was acquitted of all potential allegations, and they found me innocent of anything, before the other person was even willing to consider the possibility that maybe they had been lied to or I had been misrepresented, right? And that experience put me on the defense towards trusting the word of a woman for a long time. It also put me on the defense of believing that a woman was capable of being held accountable or telling the truth, right? In terms of like, are you accurately representing the whole story? But it also destroyed a pretty significant amount of trust that I had in several of my key family members, because I realized they were willing to come after me over something that there's no way in hell I would ever do, right? And I've sort of experienced something similar over the last couple of years. Not an identical thing, not nearly as severe, but something similar. And I realized that a lot of the pain of that experience the second time around was being driven by the destruction of the first time around. And I want to teach you what God showed me, right? Because the pain was so real, because the anger, the frustration, and the fear of the damage that could be done was so real, I had accepted the belief and knowledge that nothing could be broken greater than God could redeem, but I looked at redemption of the actions as a conclusion to the process, that this is something that happened at the end of the process. And while the full redemptive nature obviously comes at the conclusion of events like this or one similar, do you want to know what I didn't accept until recently? Was that he's there through the process too. That despite how ugly the path forward gets, how crooked, how bad, how nasty, how gross, how backwards, how upside down, despite the fact that it's true, he can take all of that and fix it and make it provide redemption at the end of the journey, that he's with you through the process too. And you don't need to have any fear of the journey through the hellfire. Because just like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, you can be protected from the flames if you keep your eyes on Jesus through the process. Just like Peter on the water, you can stay afloat if you keep your eyes on Jesus in the process. And there's a huge part of our life that we walk through afraid of the potential consequence that comes at the back end, forgetting that we can't screw something up greater than God can redeem it, but also just because we know that, we can fear the process of getting there too. And I want to offer you this encouragement that fearing the process and attempting to avoid the consequence of the process or potential pitfalls of the process that you need to go through is a control issue. It's rooted inherently in the belief that either A, you could screw it up so badly that God can't redeem it, or B, that if you're not in charge, something's going to get screwed up that you have to make amends for later, or C, that when you fail, you're in danger. And maybe it's true. Maybe you do get hurt along the way. Maybe you lose something along the way. But if it's true that God is with you in the process, then the process is in fact a fire that's intended to refine you, where the things you're losing, you're intended to lose. Where the things that hurt are intended to hurt, because without consequence, there is no morality improvement. Without consequence, there is no self-reflection that demands that we pursue righteousness more. Without the pain or the purpose in the process, you don't become what you're intended to become by letting go of the things you never should have picked up in the first place. And you see, being trusted to suffer through the process and keep your eyes on Jesus is its own testimony of the goodness of God as a whole. Because the redemptive part at the end, while absolutely God gets the glory, is the fruit of your faith. It's the fruit of your faith on the journey to that moment in time. And if we look at a story like Job, where he had 3 different friends who at the core of their message all had the same concern, which was, well, you must have done something wrong because God wouldn't be acting like this if you hadn't. So clearly you did something wrong, because whether you know it or not, God wouldn't be acting like this if you didn't. And then Job's standing there like, you in the same breath say that I'm a man of integrity, and then I get my hope from my integrity, and I get my courage because of the fear of the Lord. If I'm in fact a man of integrity, then I'm also a man who's quick to admit when he is wrong, knowing or unknowingly. I would know to go to God and tell him I've done something wrong. I'm lamenting before the Lord because I don't know what I've done wrong, and I feel like I am being unjustly punished. Right? And the interesting thing about their perspective to Job is many of us go through life playing some kind of part or no part at all in the actions that other people do towards us that end up hurting us or destroying us. And then when other people look around at the choices they make, they go, well, they must have had a reason to do it. Clearly, you did something wrong. And what do? They justify the other person's decision to harm you or hurt you or defame you or attack your character or integrity or to treat you like absolute garbage because clearly you earned it. That's what Job's friends did. And Job took that belief and thought, if I have, I'm willing to repent for it, but I feel like I'm being unjustly punished. God, why are you doing this? And God is like, where were you when I hung the heavens? Who are you to question me? Because what Job didn't know until later, that he was proving his faith. And so sometimes your friends, your family, the people that feel like they're close to you or think that they know you, they can think that they understand everything that's going on based on the little bit of information they have. Because Job's friends had a little bit of information. They had an understanding of the character or nature of God to that point in time of what they understood about the character and nature of God. They hadn't yet ever witnessed God actually testing somebody's faith like that, right? Or proving somebody's faith like that, right? And so it's not entirely impossible. In fact, it's entirely probable that a lot of people will never have the full story so that they can provide the appropriate response to circumstances. They'll only have pieces of it. They'll only have parts of it. And they'll most likely choose to accept the ones that make them feel the most comfortable about their worldview or their perception of you. Because that's what Job's friends did, right? It was their worldview of God and their perception of, well, you must have done something. And so what I learned in that process and in the process I've had recently is that I cannot fear the perception what people have over me. When I know that they don't know what I know, and I know that they don't know the whole story, and I know that they don't know the truth, and I know that they only have bits and pieces of the information, my fear of their perception keeps me stuck in a cycle of believing that maybe they're right. And it makes me look at God and go, why am I being unjustly punished? Which is not a question I have permission to ask of the Lord, because I wasn't there when he hung the heavens and the earth. Rather, it's faithfulness through the process of the unjust or perceived unjust punishment. It's faithfulness through the persecution that comes from the people with little information, bad information, partial information, or out of context or mischaracterized or incomplete information, regardless of how many mountains of metadata they have that align with their story. If they don't have all of it, it is in fact partial information, right? And so in the same breath, it's surrendering the fear of enduring the process by accepting that in the process, I can prove my faithfulness by simply asking the question, what do I need to let go of? And how do I show up for those around me in a way that honors you even through this? And when the day of redemption comes, it's the fruit of my faith. And the amount of glory that God gets in that moment will be directly tied to how significant the redemption is in comparison to how horrible the process was. And I want to offer you the encouragement that you can in fact do the same thing. You can take your eyes off the storm. You can take your eyes off the fire. You can take your eyes out of the process. You can rebuke the perception that people have about you. And you can accept one fundamental truth. The only thing I'm intended to look forward to is Jesus. And the only thing I'm being asked to do is surrender. Love you. Hope that helps.